For those of you who know me fairly well, you know that I love horses. I have carousel horses surrounding my room because I love them that much, that I usually pick up at the thrift store, just saying. But this Country Extra, which is March 2021, running free, is experiencing Utah's wild desert horses. Look at this, it's beautiful. And it reminds me kind of Montana, right? Which, by the way, there's a section of Montana in this very book. Anyway, went out to Walmart tonight. Not only did I have 2 coats on, but I had my Yellowstone mask on. This man literally goes, "Honey, she's got a rip mask on. Go ask her where she got it at." I turned around because I heard him say this, right? And I said, "I got it off of Etsy." He goes, "eBay?" I said, "Although I shop eBay, no, Etsy." "Oh, we'll find it on eBay." Some people you just can't help, but I tried. Okay, so page 12 and 13 are just outstanding moments. They show a picture of a mama goose with her baby gooses, and it says, "Fresh air, precious moments. This past spring we weren't able to visit the usual favorite places due to quarantine restrictions, but we could still visit the local state parks on a chilly, cloudy day. My husband insisted that we needed a change of scenery. Through the sky was dreary and gray. We bundled up and headed to the Hagerstown City Park, where they have a trail that goes around a lake. As we crested the hill, I asked my husband to pause so I could admire a Canadian goose posed so stoically. Her wings were fluffed out, but she did not move at all. She just kept staring intently at us. We didn't go any closer, so as not to infringe on her territory. Suddenly I saw the movement out of the corner of my eye. The goose had lifted her wing, and out came a dozen fluffy goslings. They ran around her, exploring the grass and the nearby tree. Because it was chilly, Mama Goose didn't let them stay outside very long. Soon she made the call and lifted her wing, and they came running to squeeze under her protective covering. Had we gone by very quickly, we'd have missed this surprise under that wing. This quarantine time has taught us to be thankful for the little things that we may take for granted, like a walk in the park or a mother goose and her gooselings. Ann Duval from Greencastle, Pennsylvania, the field editor. Into the Garden. I love this name. Listen to it. Davina, with a Davina. My 3-year-old granddaughter is afraid of any creepy crawlies like flies, bugs, or spiders. She visited me last spring. I was making 2 raised garden beds. The only thing I had left to do was fill the beds with earthworms. Always willing to help, Davina came over to her fears and had no problems grabbing the worms I had dug up and plopping them into the beds. She was a wonderful helper. Carol Fuss from Wayne, Nebraska. And this is page 12. And this is the mother and her gooselings and the little girl with the earthworms. Isn't that adorable? Okay, page 13. Spring is popping up all over. Special delivery. My brother Randy turned a gorgeous old truck into a gorgeous garden planter. Now that is inventive right there. I think that's just wonderful. Okay, on the bottom here it's a pedal pusher. This wooden wagon was made in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. I hand-painted it and called it Billy's Painted Wagon Debut at Easter time. Billy Fair from Chattanooga, Tennessee. And it is pretty. Irish Blessing. Get ready, 'cause March is blowing in, bearing gifts of life anew. Flowers bloom in shades of the rainbow, and the sun shines with spring hope. St. Patrick's Day arrives on March 17th, ushering a figurative bag of gold filled with Irish blessings. My daughter Amanda endured the first of 3 heart surgeries in 1998 during the week of St. Patrick's Day. That week, the hospital cafeteria magically transformed into an Irish haven. Shamrocks dangled from walks and ceilings, and silly leprechauns danced in the lush green decor. Amanda, at only 9 months, struggled with a few complications, but March miracles and magic had Irish and blessings and prayers prevailed. March holds a special spot in my heart. I keep Irish blessings and prayers tucked away in the corner of my heart, ready for retrieval every St. Patrick's Day. Sandra Warwick, the field editor in Cleveland, Georgia. And she does the Irish prayer here. May love and laughter light your days and warm your heart and home. May good and faithful friends be yours wherever you may roam. May peace and plenty bless your world with joy that long endures. May all life's passing season bring the best to you and yours. That's page 13. Let's see here. Oh, the Country Almanac. How could I not do this one with y'all? Y'all love this. March 2021. Hang up that parka, plant a garden, and polish up the indoors and out. Spring's a-comin'. On March 13th, 1877, Chester Greenwood, a 15-year-old avid ice skater from Farmington, Maine, patented the hinged earmuff design and went on to rule an earmuff empire. He built a factory that employed local residents and produced 400,000 earmuffs in 1936, the factory's best year. Greenwood kept inventing and eventually accruing more than 100 patents. March is full of anticipation and Easter preparation. Baby animals are everywhere you look. Mother Earth is waking up, and in everyone's eyes you can see hope. Terry Lynn Eden from Unionville, Michigan. They're back. Hummingbirds often make their return to the same feeder every year after year to entice their tiny fillers to visit yours by filling it with the best sugar water recipe. Combine 4 parts hot water to 1 part real sugar, not the sugar substitute, and mix until completely dissolved. Do not add honey or red food coloring. Change the water every few days and clean the feeder regularly. New for 2021. Attract butterflies to your yard this year with the color spires back to Fuchsia perennia salva, which I'm going to have to find this. Bright pink flowers rise above a mound of neat atomic foliage, hardy in zones 3 to 8. This colorful plant is resistant to deer and rabbits. ProvenWinners.com. Set a pretty table. Did you inherit Grandma's precious sterling silverware? Polish it with a homemade 5-minute fix. Line a plastic or glass container with aluminum foil, shiny side up. Sprinkle 2 tablespoons of baking soda across the bottom. Add several pieces of silverware, making sure each piece is touching the foil. Pour nearly boiling water over silverware to cover. Let soak into 1 to 5 minutes. Now the foil may become dark due to the chemical reaction. Remove and wash with warm soapy water. Dry thoroughly with a soft cloth. Share seasonal tips at country-magazine.com/submit. There's the earmuffs, and there's the hummingbirds. There's that foliage and the silverware. And that's page 16. Moving on. Okay, so a rider crosses the Nevada desert during the Pony Express re-ride. Read more about the 10-day event on page 26. This is page 22, 23. It says the spirit rides on in the Utah desert. Gordon Illing finds wild horses and Old West along the Pony Express National Historic Trail. Beautiful picture. Okay. Wanted. Young, skinny, wiry fellows not over 18 must be expert riders willing to risk death daily. Orphans preferred. Those words appeared in the advertisement for the Pony Express. Though I'm on the trail, they really don't apply to me at all. I'm older than 18, by the way, too many decades, and farthest I've galloped a horse is about 100 yards, and even the shortest distance gave me the willies. On top of that, I'm not an orphan, and I don't like to risk death more than once or twice a week, tops. In spite of lack of qualifications, though, my wife, Kathy, and I set on the Utah portion of the Pony Express Historical National Trail. The service, which carried the mail from April 1860 until October 1861, is an icon of the Old West. California's statehood and the settlement of the frontier called for speedy exchange of news between the East and the West Coast. Although most people consider it impossible, the Pony Express carried mail between St. Joseph, Missouri and Sacramento, California in 10 days or less, and for most part it did fulfill that promise. In fact, California newspapers received news of Lincoln's election only 17 days and 17 hours after the East Coast papers did, all because of those young, wiry riders. Traces of the trail still exist in California and Utah, and we intend to follow it much of its length throughout the Toole County in Utah. About 1 hour south of the Great Salt Lake, we turned off Highway 36 onto the historic trail. Although it's still dirt in this area, the trail is considerably wider and smoother than it was in 1860. These days, passenger cars have no trouble negotiation over this stretch of trail. Okay. They show this crossing the sagebrush-dotted landscape was a challenge for riders. They show a picture above. But wild horses can be seen near the Simpson Springs station. So here's the sagebrush, okay? And look at the wild horses. Aren't they beautiful? Retracing history is still a car is poor substitute for a racing horse, but even in relative comfort and wide open spaces Kathy and I traversed were humbling. After we climbed Lookout Pass, the 6,100-foot high point of our section of the trail, high desert dotted by small mountain ranges spread out as far as I gotta go over here. We would see in every direction, and we could see in a long way. It gave us new respect for the exploits of these young riders when the Pony Express took off in 1860. The stretch was between Salt Lake City and Carson City, Nevada, and it was the wildest of the route. The U.S. government had forced Native Americans to relocate away from the most of the Pony Express Trail, with the exception of western Utah and Nevada. This was Paiute territory, and the tribe objected to stations and monopolizing their water sources. In fact, managing a station in this area was considerably most dangerous than being a rider. Only a handful of riders ever died in the line of work, but 24 station workers lost their lives in Native American uprisings. The pivotal player. Utah played a key role in the Pony Express route because the state had the largest population center along the route. Locals grew hay, grain for the riders, and a number of riders were Mormons who came from the western part of the country. They were young, tough, extremely responsible, so the company drew heavily from the local population. The trail through the part of Utah in its wildest section. Pavement covers almost the entire 1,800-mile route from Missouri to California. And that is what makes the 100-mile stretch of the dirt road so special. It's far from pristine, but with a bit of imagination you can envision riding horseback with nothing but the desert landscape between you and the next station. My ego was somewhat soothed to find out the mental image of a rider galloping full speed between stations was based on a myth. A good horse can maintain a gallop for only a couple of miles, and then the riders averaged relatively easygoing pace for 10 miles an hour, switching horses every hour or two. Each rider covered 75 to 100 miles. We spent much of the time traveling between the two sites of the Pony Express stations, Point Lookout, Simpson Springs. Good water made Simpson Springs particularly noteworthy in this dry country. Today a replica of the actual station at the site is a campground nearby, as well as a restroom, the only one that for many miles, I might add. Another stop, known as the Abundant Water Supply, later became the Fish Springs National Wildlife Refuge. Today, nature lovers explore the refuge with cameras in hand to take snapshots of wildflowers and migratory birds such as the horned lark. Did you know that in spite of the heroics involved 35,000 pieces of mail delivered and the 500,000 miles covered on horseback, the Pony Express was a financial disaster? It cost the equivalent of $135 to send a half-ounce letter, and the most people couldn't afford it. The completion of the cross-county telegraph line was the final nail in a coffin, and only 18 months after its initiation, the Pony Express folded. This is the replica station that was at Simpson Springs that was built in 1975. Water nearby made it an important station along the route. And then up here we get to see the Pony Express dashed past, and it seemed almost like the wind racing over the prairie. Mary Ann Stuckey from the 1860 Mormon settler. Beautiful horses. And the reason I'm holding like this is because there's 2 pages in here that discuss the Pony Express, and we're going to go back and cover it at the end of this on page 29. All the beautiful horses. Wildlife thrives near the waters once reserved for the stations of Pony Express. Seeing herds of wild horses was one of the big reasons Kathy and I were so intent on exploring the section of the Pony Express route. We found large bands of horses within 5 miles of Simpson Springs in both directions. These animals are descendants escaped from the local ranches. Occasionally you can still spot one with a brand. One of the things that make these Pony Express trail horses special is the size of the herds. In most places we see horses congregating in the bands of 4 to a dozen. Here we saw small bands gathering together into herds of more than 100 animals, and this is the only place we've seen such numbers in such glorious sight. Our first view of them was as they crossed the road right in front of us, and many of these animals are quite tolerant of wildlife watchers, even coming right up to us, to people on foot. It's very exciting, but keep in mind that horses are large animals. A startled one can seriously injure a bystander, so keep your distance. Still, for Kathy and me, seeing the horses running free is a bridge to another time when wiry young men risk death daily to deliver the mail. Herds of wild horses can be seen and photographed from the road. Okay, back in the saddle. The legacy. My grandfather was a homesteader in the western Utah, so I grew up in the real West. Everything to do from the horses and history was interesting to me, so I was 13 in 1960 when they did the big centennial ride. I would have been cut off my right hand to have been part of it. It says every June, Patrick Hardy and the fellow volunteers carry the quote-unquote mail during the Pony Express re-ride, and here's why he does it, and here's how you can see the ride. Riding today is not exactly a reenactment. We take a leather mail pouch or mocha filled with commemorative letters on some of the aspect of the Pony Express history as we pass over the backs of the 500 horses. One year we started at St. Joseph and ride to Sacramento, the next year vice versa. Instead, it's of 75 to 100 miles. We ride about 8 miles each. We're old and soft. We're keeping the spirit of the Pony Express alive in the minds of the public. Spectator love. The people can come out and watch us ride. It's really fun to see the responses from people. They honk, they wave as we pass. It's important to try and keep it authentic. We do a swearing-in ceremony before the ride begins, taking a version of the oath that's similar to one that riders took in 1860. We promise not to drink, beat our horses, or fight with other riders. Good company. Today my 4 children, son-in-law, daughter-in-law, ride with me. We have about 20 riders and a half a dozen trails. 3 or 4 people usually follow the rider with a mail pouch. If a horse gets lame or a rider gets bucked off, somebody else can easily take over. Being out there with my family, good horses, and friends is precious. The adventure. My favorite place to ride is definitely the West Desert of Utah. I had an experience out there 3 years ago, and we were going west about 2 o'clock in the morning. My son was carrying the mail out by Fish by Springs, and this horse threw a shoe, so I went on alone. I had no support, no headlights lighting on the road, just me and the horse in the road. I got chills because of the thought. This is what they saw. This is what the Pony Express riders, experienced. The re-ride is on. The riders will saddle up on June 16th for a 2021 re-ride, which will begin in Sacramento, California. Go to nationalponyexpress.org/re-ride and for an estimated schedule. Remember to be early and be patient. If you plan to see the re-ride in western Utah, remember to have a full tank of gas, food, water, and spare tire. High clearance vehicles are not necessary, but flats are not uncommon. And here they show a created in the 1960 the Pony Express 100 birthday map, the route from St. Joseph to Sacramento. Look at that route. And then up there. How cool is that, right? That was pretty cool to share that with you. Okay, Wander Among the Wildflowers. So this is page 3031. Come Spring and by Karen LaPurry. Okay, and these are several pages that I need to get some paper clips here from the other book, because we're going to want to mark each and every one of these pages so I can put that on the thing when I get done here reading. I feel like I've been reading it forever for y'all. Anyway, come spring and summer, the mountain hills, desert plains, prairies, forests, and alpine meadows across America will come alive with wildflowers that intoxicate with their hues, scents, beauty, and what better way to say adieu to this past year, marked by a global pandemic that prompted lockdowns, than to reacquaint ourselves with the majestic, great outdoors. By all measures, 2020 was challenging for everyone, and nothing is better than an antidote that means to be nature with signs of new life, splashes of bright colors. Wildflowers remind us that spring will be full of hope, new beginnings. As American musician Sheryl Crow says, no matter how chaotic it is, wildflowers will still spring up in the middle of nowhere, and that brings us joy. Go experience the chaos of the wildflower beauty in these 5 areas that fly often below the radar. But before heading out, make sure the destination is open and check if it has any special requirements due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Waves of bright orange poppies sway in the meadows on the hillside in the Pacheco Peak State Park during wildflower season. Beautiful. Look at that. Doesn't it have you thinking spring? It has us wanting to shoot that groundhog right about now, right? Okay. The Fort Pierre National Grassland from South Dakota on page 32. That is beautiful, isn't it? I'm just going to read over what's there so you guys can go check it out and read the book if you want to go really look at all these beautiful lands. Or if you have the money to venture that far, should I say. The Little Cottonwood of Canyon, Utah is next. And it says, look for the interpretive signs along the Cricket Lake Trail. And it is beautiful. That is beautiful. That's page 33. Okay, page 34 is Mount Jefferson, the wilderness area of Oregon. Fun fact, grizzly bears sometimes use bare grass leaves to build a place to rest in their winter dens. Beautiful. Wichita Mountains, which is wildlife refuge in Oklahoma. Look at that. That's just majestic. That's page 35. Oh, this is beautiful. Pacheco Peak State Park in Arizona. And it's page 36 and 37. It looks like we're starting a new section next. Oh, I told you we were going to mention Montana. Here it is. Inspiration, a sense of place. Look at that. Beautiful. On the Bear Creek Hill, a traveler spies the valley where his heart and spirit belong by Pete Critelli from Red Lodge, Montana. The bulky Auto Club map, no GPS then, reluctantly flattened out, covering most of the kitchen table. This was no vacation. This was getting out of Dodge some 25 years ago. Although I was comfortably encircled by a balmy 80 degrees near the Pacific, my life there was always become congested freeways, smog, and human mayhem. So I fueled up the blue pickup and began my search for a new home. Some of my friends questioned whether this major move was chancy. I truly appreciated their concern, and I politely said, "Opinions vary," a line from the movie Roadhouse. My friends visited the high country some years later. At that point, they understood without me having to say a word why I did what I did. At that start of my 2-week journey, I stayed in the southern Colorado Rocky Mountains town at a roadside motor lodge, one of the 1950 classics with a colorful neon sign, turquoise stucco exterior, and red metal Adirondack chairs in the front of every door. As I loaded up in the morning, I saw commotion out of the 2-lane blacktop. A pickup truck carrying a dad and a son stopped. Apparently the blue heeler stock dog had vaulted himself from a assigned position in the back of the pickup onto the roof of the cab, where he was perched, ready for the wind in his jowls. Dad, right below in the cab, reached up and tapped the truck roof, giving him a stern command to the pup, and the words were clearly indicated that this was not the dog's first rooftop rodeo. With a canine shrug of inevitable, the dog plopped down into the back, and off they went. That short scene confirmed my commitment to keep on keeping on in my quest. As I worked my way north from Colorado into Wyoming, I absorbed every turn onto the 2-lane blacktop and every daily conversation with folks who lived and worked in the mountains. I'm going to keep reading until I finish the story, then we'll stop and restart again. And in hindsight, most likely I babbled too many questions with a big city impatience. Fortunately, I learned quickly that slow and cordial is a better approach. When I reached Cody, Wyoming, it was instantly made shortlist. To this day, I make a frequent day trip to Cody. However, some 60 miles to the north of Cody was the next day's scheduled stop at the Red Lodge, Montana. It was easy drive, going through the tumbling sagebrush paralleled on the west by towering white-capped mountains and on the east by rolling flatlands. Nearly Nearing my destination, I drove up Bear Creek Hill to 5,720 feet. Whew. I don't know if I could be that brave. Cresting that grade for the first time gave way to panorama of a small town nestled between two vertical bluffs. I pulled over and got out of the truck. The scene took my breath away. Spanning 100 miles west at peak elevations of more than 12,000 feet was a jaw-dropping Absaroka range, and as I stood there looking down at the town, I knew this was home. I have now lived at Red Lodge for 26 years, and each day I feel the same enthusiasm for this rustic community, its beauty, its people, as I did when I crested that ridge in that blue truck that is still running strong. They show a picture of Pete Credit Hill above that still drives that blue pickup that started his journey to Red Lodge 25 years ago. And I won't have to stop, thank God. That was page 40 and 41. I say that now, and by the time I get to the next page, it'll probably act up again. Oh, we got a joke on page 50. What starts with an E and ends with an A has only one letter in it. Think on this. An envelope. Okay, I know that was kind of hard, right? Trying to see why I actually marked this. I guess for the pretty pictures. The Great Wide Open. Life in Focus. There's so many good stories in this book that we're not reading. I know that we're not reading, which is amazing, right? So you want to be sure to pick this book up and read it. But I'm going to share The Great Wide Open, the outdoors adventures that await you anywhere. King of the Hill. From my vantage point in the Desert View Watchtower in the Grand Canyon, I watched as this brave figure in the red ventured out to the edge to get a bird's eye view. Linda Curculio from Lumberton, New Jersey. And here's the person in the red. Way up there. I don't think I'd be that brave. Okay. Number 2, Beacon of Safety. The Fiskard Lighthouse in the British Columbia is the oldest one on Canada's west coast. Anne-Marie Ebhart from Gig Harbor, Washington. That is pretty, isn't it? Number 3, The Spring Song. This redbud's early flowers provided the perfect place for a pretty goldfinch to perch. Wanda Hunter from Fordson, Georgia. There's the little bird, see him? Okay, that's 52, 53. Going to 54, 55. Retro road trip. Some of our favorite memories along the Mawala River, driving our 1930 hot rod with the windows down, going with the flow of the river until we couldn't go any further. Elizabeth Odell from Beaver Creek, Oregon. There's the hot rod. Okay. The Morning Sun. We visited the windows section of the Arches Park at daybreak to capture the rising sun, lighting up the red rock stone arches. Early morning is a wonderful time to enjoy the park with fewer people around. There were only a few others in the area when I snapped this picture. Nancy Tilley from Washington, Pennsylvania. And Test of Time. A friend and I were in Grand Teton National Park and read about a very old tree called the Old Patriarch. This picture shows how small my friend looked next to the huge elderly beauty. Catherine Plesserner from Verona, Dakota. There's her friend, and there's the big tree. Okay, Hakuna Matata. I love this magical, serene scene. The deer just trot peacefully through the egrets in the early morning hours. Tony Whitlock from Greenwich, Ohio. Beautiful. And that was the last paperclip. Believe it or not. Yeah, the last paperclip. But I will share the back with you. I am thankful that in troubled world no calamity can prevent the return of spring. Helen Keller. And that is so breathtaking. And that is all of Country Extra that I'm going to cover. There are some stories in there I did not cover. That means you got to pick up this book. You got to read all of this book. It's that good. So, no excuses. Pick up that book. This is the last video for the night, because that's 4 videos. So what am I going to say right now? Please keep your social distance. Please wash your hands. When you're not washing your hands, use your hand sanitizer. Make sure that you are always wearing your mask. Be safe. We're not through this pandemic. We're still in it. Act like it. So I want you all, the very best here, to have faith, hope, and love. The greatest is love. We're going to get through this. And I want you to know that you're going to have prosperity in the heart as well as your bank. Giving is better than to receive. So please remember that as well. Please also know that if you give, it's an overwhelming feeling. Whether it's to help St. Jude's, whether it's to help someone across the street, whether it's someone you know celebrating a birthday that maybe somebody didn't remember. It just takes a few moments of time to make a big difference in somebody else's life. I hope that you remember that. God bless. Stay safe. Stay well. I plan on seeing you again tomorrow night. I know, wildly insane. Let me give you an update about our family really quick. Cousin Penny has been under the weather, from what I understand, and we hope our thoughts and prayers are with her, and we hope that she gets well ASAP. We would love to have her Sunday, but if she's under the weather, we understand. The computer's going crazy. I apologize about that. However, from what I understand also, my mom doesn't know right now if they're coming up Sunday or not because we're under another winter advisory. So please stay tuned on that. I'll keep you updated, and God bless. Stay safe, stay well.